Hi, everyone. This is Cheri Bergeron. I'm the founder and CEO of Cheri's Choice, and I am so excited to welcome all of you to Unwrapping New Possibilities for Motherhood. We have brought together an incredible panel of women to discuss the many challenges surrounding fertility and becoming a mother in this modern world. This discussion for me really hits personally because, frankly, I've lived it. I struggled to find the right partner. Actually, I still do. And I experienced 10 years of infertility before having my children as a single mother by choice at the ages of 44 and almost 47. And what I remember from that time is that the end of each year put a punctuation mark on my struggle. It was another year that I didn't have the child that I wanted. And each year I would vow and pray that the new year would be different. And that's really why we're having this panel today, because I believe that 2026 can brought these women together who are making a profound impact on helping women become mothers. So I hope you'll settle in for a very inspiring conversation. So let me introduce you to all of the ladies. We have Dr. Mina Yang, who is a relationship coach and the best-selling book, Boss Lady, Boss Love. She specializes in guiding smart, successful women towards the love that they truly want without self-sabotaging, playing games, or settling for less than they deserve. We also have Dr. Susan Fox, who is a board-certified expert in reproductive health and fertility. She brings together a unique blend of traditional Chinese and functional medicine to provide fertility guidance through her medical practice and also education through her platform, Health University. We have also Dr. Ivy Love Margulies. She is a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in grief, loss, and the trauma surrounding women's reproductive issues, including miscarriage, infertility, child loss, and postpartum mental health. Dr. Ivy provides a unique blend of therapeutic methods combined with Reiki, energy healing, and guided meditation to help women, couples, and families truly heal. We have Arsiak Vartinian. She's a media creator behind Smart is the New Sexy, and she speaks candidly about her struggles with infertility, multiple miscarriages, and using a surrogate to create her daughter, Valentina. Now she coaches and guides other women who want to pursue surrogacy to build their families. And then we have Ao Haynes, and she is an open adoption advocate and the founder of She's Extraordinary Success Coaching. Ao successfully adopted her daughter as a single mother by choice, and now she empowers women to approach adoption with clarity, confidence, and emotional preparedness. So it's amazing. And ladies, I just want to welcome all of you.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
thank you.
I am thrilled. And I'll tell you what I love about this panel is that we represent diverse backgrounds of different ethnicities, religious beliefs, life experiences, and motherhood journeys. And it really demonstrates how widespread these issues are for women. And I just really thank you so much for being here today. So our theme for this conversation is called Unwrapping New Possibilities for Motherhood. And what we're going to do is break this down into 5 small segments. And I'm thinking of them as individual gifts that we can unwrap to offer new possibilities for women in their pursuit of motherhood. Each segment is going to focus on an obstacle and a potential solution, a pathway, if you will, that women can gain inspiration from to chart their path. And if you have any questions for the presenters, I urge you to put those into the chat. All right, let's get the show on the road. I want to start with you, Mina. And as a relationship expert, I have to say, when I was in my 30s, I felt really powerful in my career and yet totally powerless when it came to my romantic relationships. And so what do you think makes finding the right relationship as a successful career woman so difficult?
I think that oftentimes the very qualities that make us successful in work actually work against us in relationships. So for example, it's great that In work, we put a lot of effort into things, we have a lot of drive, but in relationships, that might show up as us over-functioning, people-pleasing, even self-abandonment. And I would say that a lot of people, a lot of high-achieving people might have had childhoods that were less than ideal. Perhaps we had to seek validation and attention elsewhere because our home life was chaotic. Maybe our parents didn't give us the kind of love and attention that we might have wanted. And so we are, working under the beliefs that love has to be earned, love is conditional, love is not available to us, and that affects the kind of relationships we end up having as adults.
Interesting. And so, how do you think the traditional ideas of a romantic relationship keep women from actually finding the right partner for them?
Yeah, I like to use Disney movies as examples of this because, one narrative we often get is that we have to somehow be chosen. So if you think about Cinderella, waiting among hundreds of women who to be chosen by this prince that we barely see in the movie version, but we just want to be chosen to be the princess regardless of who he is, that can really mess with our heads. And then The Little Mermaid, where she actually gives up her very identity as a mermaid to become a fake human in order to get the prince, again, someone that she's only seen for a few moments, but she's convinced he's the one. And so we privilege chemistry over alignment. We privilege being chosen over choosing. We want to find a relationship where there's mutual effort, mutual choosing, and a real alignment of values, including the desire to have a family.
Right, true. And I know you talk, I read all of your posts on LinkedIn kind of religiously, and I know you talk a lot about types and really questioning the kind of type we look for, and there's really some great insights in there. So one thing that's particularly interesting to me is, we get to a certain age and our biological clock starts ticking really loudly. And some women are tempted to settle for a partner because they want children and sort of force that to make it work. Share a little bit about what your view is on that.
Well, I've lived that story. So I was in my late 30s when I met the man who would become my husband, who I would then divorce 11 years later. And he was waving all kinds of red flags, but I married him anyways because I really wanted to have kids. And I heard my clock ticking very loudly at that point. And we did have 2 kids, 2 wonderful kids. But here's the thing, right? It's not just about having the kids. You want to raise them too. And we had created a family life where there was a lot of yelling and fights and deep freezes. It was far from ideal for an environment to raise kids in. And then once we got the divorce, there was a prolonged custody battle. Both of our finances took a hit. So I would say instead of doing that, either freeze your eggs so you have more time, or have kids on your own. Like after the divorce, I'm now in a relationship with a man who I met when I was a solo parent and he was a solo parent. We both have 2 kids each, and we're in the best relationship of our lives. So you really don't have to follow this kind of traditional timeline. You can date and fall in love after you have kids. And so, avoid the decades-long struggle that I went through, a lot of other women go through, marrying the wrong person just to have a kid. You want to create a family life. If my kids had been born to a single mother instead, they would have started off life with a mom who was peaceful, feeling in control, not angry, not defensive. And I wish I had provided that for them instead.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much to unpack there, I will tell you. And I think I'm really resonating with what you're saying. So what do you think the first step is for women who are feeling powerless to find that romantic relationship that they truly want?
I think it always starts with self-awareness. Why am I repeating certain patterns in relationships? What's the sort of the deeper issues at the root of why I keep chasing emotionally unavailable men, or I reject the nice man? Really kind of look at yourself. A lot of these, issues come from our childhood, beliefs. And so I would say start there.
Oh my gosh. And you just posted on this very topic. So if you haven't seen Mina's post from this weekend, please do, because it really, the biggest thing you said that impacted me was you said, heal thyself. If you want to have a really good relationship and the love that you deserve, heal thyself. So we'll leave that there. But thank you so much, Mina. And Mina works with women to kind of mentor them in that healing process and really examining the relationships and the men that they're going that they're attracted to try to get them to a better place. So thank you for all the work you are doing there. Dr.
Thank
Susan,
you.
I'm going to move over to you for a moment. I found it really interesting that you blend traditional medicine with Chinese medicine and really try to take a holistic view. I mean, a lot of times we think that the traditional medical community doesn't think anything of alternative medicine. So when did you first realize that those disciplines needed to be combined?
Wow. Thank you again for having me. And Mina, that was an amazing conversation. I've got the chills from it. So probably out the gate, as soon as I opened my doors, I happened to have a practice across the hall from an IVF center. And it became, apparent rather quickly when the patients were coming in my door saying, "Can you help me?" that they were needing more than they were getting in the reproductive endocrinologist office, out of necessity, right? I mean, the doc can only do what the docs are designed to do. And there was a big gap in these women's healthcare. Oftentimes I found that they were not struggling necessarily with infertility, but they were having subfertility based upon lifestyle choices, dietary choices, improper supplementation because they were just coming in with bags of supplements that they were, learning about through the internet. So it really became clear that I needed to kind of roll up my sleeves and do a deeper dive to help these women get better outcomes, whether they're trying to conceive naturally or through assisted reproductive therapies.
That's amazing. And so in your practice, you help women who are suffering from a variety of issues of infertility, like PCOS, endometriosis, hormone imbalances, diminished ovarian reserve, and a host of other issues.
Right.
How do you approach addressing these kinds of issues?
Yeah, uniquely to the person, right? Because the person is not their diagnosis. The diagnosis explains, for insurance purposes, what has gone out of balance. And so my initial conversation with them when in private practice, is an 80-minute intake and conversation, so I can really distill down, what has occurred. So I have their labs, but again, they're not their diagnosis and they're not their lab results. I need to find out why, and I need to know this person individually. So while there are some parameters that I will follow, because a PCOS support can be consistent, but this person is unique. And so I think that is where I value traditional Chinese medicine, because it looks for patterns that go a little bit out of whack, a little bit sideways, and we really help bring that pattern back into alignment, and then the physiological imbalances will rebalance. And again, whether or not they're trying to conceive naturally or going through assisted reproductive therapies or egg freezing or IVF, they get better outcomes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were actually one of the first people who made me aware of all the everyday toxins in our environment that can impact our fertility. It was shocking to me.
Yes.
And what do you see are the worst offenders, and what are some of the practical changes? Because it's all around us, right? So what are some of the practical changes that you think women can make?
Right. Well, again, yes, it is all around us. These everyday chemicals are endocrine disruptors. And yet our bodies are brilliant at being able to reset if we take some of these offenders out. So things like organic food, organic vegetables, those pesticides, reside in our body, long after we've digested and eliminated, allegedly eliminated the waste. We want to also make sure we're having, grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught, free range, all of that with our protein sources as well, because once again, these things, the hormone imbalances that might be in the feed pardon me, the hormones that might be in the feed for some of the cattle, for instance, or the chickens, will reside in our body. And I will sometimes get pushback on, well, I can't afford that, it's too expensive. And I want to just challenge that notion a little bit, because the cost of subfertility or infertility is far greater than the cost of the extra couple of dollars, perhaps, of the frozen organic vegetables, and the amount that one needs to consume of a healthy protein source is less than one might feel the need to consume, because they're being malnourished with too much food that is unhealthy. So just taking away some of the the food, then our personal care products, look at your shampoos, look at your toothpaste, read the ingredients. It's appalling what we're putting directly into our bloodstream. So there are healthy choices, alternatives. Check your water source. I mean, our agencies are trying to do the best they can, but they fall well below even the Environmental Protection Agency's standard. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to afford our water. But we can do things like a carbon filter or reverse osmosis to get healthier water into our bodies, because what we put in is what we're offering our ovaries, follicles, eggs, uterus, amniotic fluid, placenta. All of these are going to be bearing the repercussions of putting in unhealthy chemicals.
Right. And I know you have much detail about that on your platform, Health University, which I appreciate so much. How does chronic stress, because none of us are stressed, right? How does chronic stress impact a woman's fertility, in your opinion?
Well, it will spike cortisol, right? Our stress hormone, which will then in turn spike insulin, because our cortisol is putting too much blood sugar into our system. And that constant sort of reactive, how should I say, that constant reactivity of the hormonal downstream affects our fertility. We're going to see those inflammatory markers in follicular fluid. So those eggs could be growing in a fluid that has all of the inflammatory markers. So obviously we don't live in a bubble. We aren't all meditating on a mountaintop, but we can implement kind of in advance some stress reduction techniques that become part of our everyday life, so that we grow resilience, so that when those stressors occur, we're better apt to recognize them and respond to them.
Gotcha. And so many things to be thinking about. What would you say if a woman has a sense that her fertility is not what she wants, or really maybe even wants to be proactive about it? What would you say is the first step there?
Well, I would say please be proactive about it, because I would love to see women in their late 20s requesting fertility labs, so they can at least get a picture. And especially if you've got menstrual cycle irregularities, or or discomfort or pain around menses or anything like that, better to pinpoint and highlight them and resolve them sooner, so that by the time it is go time, you've got a better body to produce the eggs in. And then if it's already go time, it's not too late. That's the other message I want to really convey, because I think sometimes we get on our heels thinking, well, that horse has left the gate, or whatever that phrase is.
Yeah, right.
And so we can make really important changes concurrent with an IVF cycle, because by the time you're picking up that phone to make that first call, you've got about 2 months by the time you have your intake, get your diagnostic labs, perhaps get some treatments that might be necessary before a stem cycle and retrieval. We have time. And again, our bodies are so resilient that we can reduce a whole lot of these factors before a stem cycle begins or before eggs are retrieved.
No, that's amazing.
If you've got eggs frozen, before transfer. So take that time to improve the health of your uterus, so you've got a better environment for transfer.
Right. And I remember talking with you about this in the past. We're so proactive about planning our career, but not necessarily planning our journey to motherhood, our path to motherhood, and what that's going to take. And so I love the work that you're doing there. Thank you so much. And so Dr. Ivy, I'm going to come to you. Because I think we focus so much on the medical aspects of infertility, but a lot of times the mental health piece of it gets kind of overlooked. I was just writing about it, and I know every woman's story is different, but are there some common themes you see women experience who are suffering from infertility and child loss? Common things you encounter?
Absolutely. I'd say the number one theme would be grief. Grief at loss of timeline for building their families and having children. And when we say child loss, Cheri, just to be clear, because infertility, are you talking about miscarriage or are you talking about actual infant and child loss? Because
I mean, I think it can be all of it, right? There's so many various kinds of loss. Even for me, there was also loss of the fairy tale that I was going to meet the right person and things like that. There's so many layers of loss. So,
absolutely, no doubt about
that
it.
you look at.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on with themes, but I'd say primarily it's the grief and trauma, the micro traumas even that layer into having to go through fertility treatments and the loss of autonomy and ability to do it as they would like to, naturally do. The fact that they are now being managed, their bodies are managed, that their lives revolve around, lab results and timing and protocols and, being medically, regulated, basically, their bodies.
I remember my fertility doctor saying, "Don't worry, we're going to take over your body." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's not comforting." I mean, and so it is a total loss of autonomy. How do you see mental health contributing to positive or negative outcomes for women who are undergoing infertility treatment?
Well, I would say women who have a stronger sense of self-regulation, emotional regulation, do better than women who feel completely dysregulated all the time emotionally. When women are dysregulated emotionally, that actually can contribute to poor sleep, higher inflammation, and an inability really to feel like their needs are being met. Women who can get more regulated, and therapy is very good for this, who feel like they could advocate more for themselves, take the time to really learn all the acronyms and the process of what is assisted reproductive technology, rather than just feeling blindly like they're going in and allowing the doctors to completely tell them what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, but to get curious with the process so that they can feel some sort of agency. The feeling of loss of control is significant, and it really helps to help women in therapy to encourage them to use their voice and to learn what it is exactly they are putting themselves through and their bodies through.
Yeah. And what core beliefs do you feel women need to shift when they're navigating infertility? I think we tell ourselves a lot of things as women, because this infertility really goes to the heart of the way we see ourselves as women, being able to conceive a child and carry. So what core beliefs do you think need to shift for a better mindset going into this kind of process?
This is a really good question. I think that the core belief that my worth is not tied into whether or not I have a child, that I am not just about creating a baby, that I am so much more than my ovaries and my uterus. When a woman gets a diagnosis of infertility, that is trauma. That is that is PTSD, because the definition of PTSD is something that happens to you out of the blue or without any sort of control, and there's technically nothing you can do about it. So it is a traumatic experience to be diagnosed with infertility. So women tend to globalize their uterus as their self-worth and their identity, when if you had a broken arm or the flu, you wouldn't do the same thing. Right. So the women go to, I'm broken, I'm defective. And it's like, no, look at all the other things that your body is doing well and right for you. And yes, your uterus and your ovaries, or whatever diagnosis they end up getting with endo or PCOS, or who knows, their lining has fibroids or whatever's happening. That these are things that's why they go to the REI, because that's the specialist that's going to help them hopefully get through the needed surgeries or medications or lifestyle changes even that they need to make to create the baby they want.
Yeah. You're right. So for women who have experienced loss of these various types, maybe just even loss of the dream, or the struggle to have the family they want, how important do you feel it is to seek support outside of immediate family and friends? We tend to think we can lean on those that are closest to us, but in what ways might that not give us the full support that we need?
Right. So while it's important, obviously, to have social support and family and people that you can lean on, it's not the same as relying on a professional or a psychologist or therapist, because your loved ones aren't personally going through it. They are also grieving with you. And so that it's oftentimes hard for them to separate out their own emotions from yours. They're like, you're all leaning on each other rather than getting professional support where that can help you delineate and validate what you're going through. So while the death of a child is traumatic, it's also emotional. So there's so many things that go into trauma, like hypervigilance, anxiety, a loss of sense of self and purpose, and who am I now? And therapists, psychologists help you to reclaim a sense of identity while grieving and holding the love for the deceased, or your inability to create family on your timeline.
Right. Wow. I mean, and I would think, from my own personal experience of loss, a lot of people don't know how to help you. They may very well not be able to relate to loss because maybe they haven't been there. And a lot of times our family members or even our significant other, they grieve in different ways that fall to you. And so, I personally have found so much more greater understanding and healing from myself working with a professional like you. And so I thank you for doing that work. And I think we do, when we're going through these kinds of things, it can feel very isolating, but I think it's so important to really reach out and seek out that support that can provide that, because if unmet trauma, even if you're successful in having a child, what I found is that can carry into motherhood as well. If you don't resolve that trauma, right? So this is really about making yourself as whole as possible through the process and after the process.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Arsiak, I'm going to turn to you. You openly share your struggles with child loss and multiple miscarriages, and then ultimately choosing surrogacy as a path to motherhood. What led you to that path and believing that was the right choice for you?
Well, I want to say thank you so much for giving us this space to be able to share our expertise and our journeys along the way. I think that, hearing from the women that have spoken before me, and just hearing what Dr. Ivy said and what Dr. Susan said, and even Mina talking about relationships, right? I had been married before, prior to my husband now, and divorced, and then we started to try to have a family early on, because when he and I got together, I was already in my mid-30s, and I knew he was going to be the one. My husband now, I knew he was going to be the one, and I just never really got serious about my reproductive health, because I never had anyone talk to me about it. Everybody in our family got pregnant naturally. And yes, if they had miscarriages, they never really spoke about it. I didn't even know my grandmother had a miscarriage, my aunts, my mom, none of them, until I started opening up about it and talking about it and figuring out what is going on with my body and why can't I do this? I live a healthy lifestyle. I work out. I eat right. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do all the things that they say, not to do. I eat organic. And at the time, I really didn't eat much, meat. I had lots of fish. So I did all of the things. The thing that led us to surrogacy is I had 6+ miscarriages. I went through 6 rounds of IVF, which 2 were only successful out of the 6 that I had gone through. And as Dr. Ivy had mentioned before, I had PTSD. Every time I would get pregnant, my body would just go into this shock and I would just freeze up and I wouldn't know what to do. And it was almost like flu-like symptoms that I had. And at the end of the day, I got tired of being a scientific project. That's exactly what I had started to think of myself, as a scientific project, where it was literally, I did all of the Chinese medicine. I did all of the acupuncture, everything outside of what my doctor, my gynecologist, and my fertility doctor had said that I needed to do, and all the testing. And there was no, how should I say, explanation of why I couldn't carry. I could get pregnant, but couldn't carry. So finally, when my husband and I decided, we had these embryos, and I'd worked so hard to get these embryos, which, by the way, that's not a guarantee also. I wanted something that would at least give me somewhat hope and a guarantee. So we started looking into surrogacy. So our first journey, I have to say, was not a pleasant one. Our first journey, we did get pregnant. We found a surrogate. We did get pregnant, and she lost our son 6 months into her pregnancy. It was during COVID. It was one of those times that nobody could be with each other. She had to deliver the baby. It was chaos. So I had decided to move into a different direction. We decided to get a new surrogate, get a new agency, do the whole thing. And I kept hope, because I knew that all I wanted was a baby, and there had to be a way. There had to be a woman out there that really met my needs, and we could partner up together and really make this happen. And we found a new surrogate, and she's an amazing woman. I love her. I still keep in touch with her. And she did our first transfer, which was the healthiest embryo that we had. And she did our first transfer. It didn't work. But then our second transfer with her resulted into our daughter, Valentina. And from that point on, it was, even while she was pregnant and the pregnancy was still going, I still had my reservations about surrogacy. I was still nervous, because now this is a human being that you met. You're trusting your gut as a mom, as a woman, that she's going to carry a healthy child. And she did, thank God. But surrogacy for us was the option to be able to have a pregnancy and deliver us a baby that we just wanted so badly.
Oh my gosh, that is such a harrowing journey, and then such a happy outcome at the end. And I know you share a lot about that whole thing, but now you help other women navigate IVF and surrogacy. And so what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you think that women have about this process?
Well, there's a few, right? A couple of the biggest ones is that if you have money, it's guaranteed. That's number one. There's no guarantee. Number two is the embryo quality. You have a healthy embryo, that's guaranteed. Well, that's not a guarantee either. So what I wanted to do, and why I'm starting a community for women that are struggling with IVF and surrogacy, is because when I was going through it, yes, I did seek therapy. I did talk to professionals, and it did help. But I wanted that human contact as an everyday woman that had gone through the same thing that I went through, that was experiencing the same emotions, that we could be able to talk about this and really relate to each other. And I couldn't find that when I was going through it. And I navigated this through my own with the support of my husband and my family. And also, you know, my therapist and our therapist, mine and my husband's therapist also. I wanted to create something that would have that human connection and that would be able to have like everyday women like myself and families that are struggling that can actually come to me and be like, hey, I know you went this, because I've hit on every point of infertility. I've had failed miscarriages. I've had failed IVF. I've had, you know, a pregnancy that resulted into the death of our son. And finally, you know, with our last surrogate, having our beautiful daughter, Valentina. So I've hit on all of them. So I know the emotions and the ups and downs of IVF and surrogacy and what to look for and what to, you know, what kind of just support that we need as women going through it. So this is why I wanted to create this community and just talk about it so openly. Not only that, there's a stigma. I have a Middle Eastern background, and I know a lot of us women here are from from different backgrounds, which makes this so beautiful. But I also wanted to show the stigma that IVF and infertility has no, they don't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. It happens in all of us. It happens in every single one of us, whether, you know, we're Middle Eastern, Latin, Asian, we all go through it, no matter what kind of lifestyle we live, and we're living a healthy lifestyle, but we shouldn't be ashamed of it. There should not be embarrassment, and we should not do this alone.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think that you've been through is the judgment around surrogacy. Do you want to talk about that just for a moment? That, you know, that society and how they view surrogacy so differently than the way you've personally experienced it.
Surrogacy, well, a lot of people, for one, when I remember talking about surrogacy and telling our friends that this is the path that we're going on, and I think it's more ignorancy than anything. I think that the first thing that came out of a few of people's mouths was, oh my God, if I had the money, I would do that too. I wouldn't want to ruin my body. And it's not even about that, because at this point with surrogacy, I mean, I'm all for plastic surgery and whatever makes you feel good as a person and as a woman, like, do it. I have no judgment on you. But at this point, I could have had like 5 mommy makeovers at that point, you know, by being able to carry my own child. I think that with surrogacy, also another misconception is that they're a vessel, and they're not. They're our partner. They're a woman that has the biggest heart, that has decided that she wanted to do this because she wants to help another family. She has kids of her own. She has no attachment to the baby if you use your own embryo, and whichever way you decide to go about surrogacy, because there's several different ways that you could do it, you know, with donors and your own embryo. But I think at the end that being able to look at this as a partnership and as a woman that is here to help you, and that there's no, yes, okay, financially they're getting paid to do this, but they're also here to help you, to be able to help you build your family. So surrogacy is, and I can go on and on. People think, oh, well, that's her baby, or that's this, or she has an attachment and she's going to run away. No, I think if you find the right agency, you find the right partner, it all works out. And the more I've started opening up about this and talking about this, I've met a handful of women that have done surrogacy and have a beautiful relationship with their surrogate, even after the fact that she delivered the baby.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. And the fact is, this was a journey of love, and that the woman that was helping you have Valentina gave you the ultimate gift. And I feel the same way. I personally used egg donor, and that is kind of a similar sort of situation, that the intentions behind the people that want to be a part of that are really lovely, and they want to give that precious gift of. And so I love seeing all that you write about around you and Valentina and your relationship. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
And Ao, I want to come to you now because you pursued a very different path and one that I love. I know that you are a life coach and an open adoption success coach, as you have on your banner there. But what first drew you to the idea of adopting a child?
Yes, so thank you again. It's such an amazing journey as I'm listening to everyone's stories, except for surrogacy. I relate to it all because I've been through it all. By the way, my name is pronounced Io.
I'm so
Um,
sorry. Did I
that's
miss that?
okay.
I
That's
apologize.
okay. So what brought me to adoption was infertility. It brought me, I started in my 20s. I started early thinking about children. From a child, wanted to be a mom of four. I always envisioned my life as that house that had tons of kids in there. I envisioned myself with a husband. And then the 20s, I was having fun. In my 30s, building a successful real estate business. And before I knew it, I was in my 40s. And I was like, how did that happen? And, I got delivered the news that I was going to have problems getting conceiving, and it hit me like a brick. The doctor was so uncaring in how she delivered the news. I remember walking out of the appointment, calling my mom in tears, like absolutely crestfallen, broken heart, because I was told I would never be a mother, basically. So that, yes, PTSD completely. And then so over time, I would go back into, okay, I'm going to do Chinese medicine to improve my fertility. I'm going to do acupuncture. I'm going to do all these things. And then by the time my 40s came around, I was 45 and I was trying IUI unsuccessfully. And I actually had my first IVF treatment the week that my mother passed away. And I had this decision to make, like, because she knew how much I wanted to be a mother. And I said, do I go through with it? How is this trauma going to affect my body with this first round of treatments? And so I had no one to talk to. I had no one to really work through all of this, and except a cousin who had successfully gone through adoption. So as you can imagine, and as you hear, chaos. My mind was spinning. I'm trying to run a business, and that business is supporting my infertility struggles, like trying to get pregnant. And Siak, you know the cost of IUI and IVF, and so do you, Cheri, right? That's not cheap. I did 2 rounds of IVF, and 5 rounds of IUI. And then I switched gears and said, okay, I'm going to go the adoption route. Not cheap either. But I came to the decision that being a mother was my life non-negotiable. I was not willing to leave this earth without being a mother. And so that started my journey of like, okay, I'm not willing to take any more medicine that's going to really put my health in danger, because at 45, 46, you have to give a lot of hormonal support to get your follicles and your eggs to release. And so I saw the success of my cousin who went that route by herself. And I said, well, if she could do it, and she told no one. I didn't find out until 30 days after her baby was born, because she was afraid that the child would be taken back. And I said, well, if she could do it without telling a soul for 30 days that she was a mom now and had gone through this process, I could do this. And I really did not want to be that person that regretted not being a mother. And so I started doing my research. It was up and down. I had to find a social worker to do my home study. There was a lot of disconnect there. And, you know, as a successful businesswoman, I was not in control of this process. And it wasn't until I decided to release control that everything started falling into place. And so when I had this incredible conversation with God, and I heard him say, relax, the child that I have for you is not ready.
Mhm.
I'm helping you. I'm waiting. I'm getting everything ready. And once I heard that and received it, I took my hands off the steering wheel and everything started to fall into place because I was told as a Black woman that as a single Black woman that it was going to take over a year and a half to become a mother for someone to select me. Well, when I took my hands off of the steering wheel, from the time that I finished my paperwork and got my all of everything approved, it took 3 weeks to be selected.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And yeah, and so within 7 weeks, 7 to 10 weeks, I think it was, I was a mom. And my head was spinning again, but it was a wonderful spinning. And what was so significant in my journey, and I think of being selected, is that I did not let fear drive the cart after I had that conversation with God, right? I decided that in my brochure book to adoptive parent families, that I mentioned that I wanted an open adoption, that I wasn't going to alienate them from the process. And I remember being told by the adoption agency, you need to take that out there, because I was spiritual in the way I expressed it. They said, these girls are not going to get that. And I said, well, I'm not taking it out because the woman or the girl who reads it will get it and they will understand where my heart is. And I really believe that is the reason why my child's birth mother selected me and that the process went so quickly. So long story short, that is why I decided to go the adoption route.
Oh my goodness. And one thing that you hit upon there, statistically, it is much harder for single parents to adopt. That the system, I think it's somewhere around only 12% of all adoptions are to single parents, and that there's a real bias there. But what I also heard you say is that you put your heart out there and you were willing to share your faith, your vulnerability, and your genuine loving intention towards that child. And I really think that what I'm hearing through all of these stories is that motherhood is also a very spiritual journey. I mean, whether you are carrying that child yourself or whether you're getting some help along the process, and every path, just like our fingerprints, is unique. And it's really our task as mothers, hopeful mothers, to follow where that path leads and be open and with that heart of love, and that the child that was meant to come to us is going to come to us. And I'm so inspired by that.
Thank you. Yes, it absolutely is. And I had to get rid of a lot of societal norms for who we are as women, right? That you have to wait for your husband. And I knew I could have been married several times, but I also knew that that wasn't the right person. And I could have a very disruptive and dysfunctional marriage and bring a child into that, or I could do it by myself. So these are all questions that I had, like Dr. Mina was talking about her experience. And the crucial part about open adoption, right? Because there are people who obviously know who their birth family are, like the mother and father, and the adoption within the adoption triad, which I call the birth parent, the adoptive parent, and the child. But they don't really exercise an openness. They know who they are, but there's no relationship. And when I started the adoption process, I absolutely was not interested in having a relationship with the adoptive parent based on what I heard societally. Like they're going to want their child back. They are the enemy. And I decided not to embrace that. And I decided to put myself in the position of that birth mother, that if I had to make this incredibly difficult decision, I would want to know something about that child along the way. I would want to know how they're doing. I would want to not wonder if I'm passing my child on the street and I don't know it. And so once I decided to shuck what the adoptive community or experts were saying and say, this is how I want to construct my family and my family's experience, and this is how I want my child's birth family to be a part of it. And it's been beautiful. We see each other at least once a year. We talk via text often. We share pictures. We immediately at the delivery eliminated the social worker, and I from being the person to deliver information and news and pass pictures. We had a human conversation and a human experience saying, this is what um, I had to initiate that, because it's not going to come from the birth family saying what their wishes are, right? The adoptive family has to really say with honesty, this is how I would like you to be in our lives over time. And that's a gradual process. And that's what I help my clients with, because
Wow.
it's not a one size fits all at all.
And where do you start with someone who's considering adoption as a potential path to motherhood?
I start them actually with a questionnaire, and I always say there's no right or wrong answers. I have a questionnaire on my website, and it just asks them basic questions about who they are. What do they have? Familial support? Do they have financial support? If they are, what kind of child are you willing to adopt into your family? Is it a child that has medical needs, that is maybe born handicapped? All of those things need to be addressed and decided on based on your circumstances and what it is that you envision for yourself as a mother. And so I start with that questionnaire, and then we take some time to just unpack that and go forward from there.
Amazing, amazing. This has been just an incredible conversation. And I know that in each of these areas, we've only scratched the surface. Again, these were meant to be little gifts. But what I'd like to do is have each of you back for a deeper dive into each of these areas that you are leading, so that women can hear more about the work you're doing, delve more into your stories, and kind of how you can help on this process. If you've submitted a question, I'm going to forward those directly to the speakers. I brought all of these women on because they are resources for you. They are people who are devoting their lives to helping make a difference and helping women find their path to motherhood. And so I'd love for them to connect with you directly. I hope that this session has been a source of great information, but also inspiration, and that maybe you've taken something away from it to say, hey, this is a path that I haven't considered. Because if the path you've been going down isn't generating the results you want, it may be time to think of another path, whether that's about shifting your mindset, whether that's shifting your approach. It is a unique path to each of us that we have to discover. So I would invite you to tune in to those upcoming sessions that we're going to have to go deeper. And I want to thank each of you ladies for sharing your stories. I'm blown away by all the links that you've been willing to go to both help, and also the courage that you've shown to find your own path to motherhood. It's really inspiring to me. So I will include your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And I also invite people to go to Cheri's Choice, which is where you can get support on finding out paths to motherhood on your own terms. So again, I'm Cheri Bergeron, and I'll leave you with this one thought. Remember, you can fulfill your dream of motherhood. I want you to know that. With knowledge, courage, determination, and a village that loves you, anything is possible. So until then, thanks so much.